Leah Littman, co-host of the Strict Scrutiny podcast and law professor at the University of Michigan. She's also author of Lawless, How the Supreme Court Runs on Conservative Grievance, Fringe Theories, and Bad Vibes. It is out in paperback on Tuesday. Congrats for that, Leah. So DOJ says it's not concerned about antitrust issues with Paramount Skydance's potential acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery, saying it won't hurt competition or consumers. What do you make of that decision, and could there be First Amendment concerns?
I think we should all be concerned with how the Trump administration is using antitrust law. Earlier, you referred to this as Paramount Skydance. That was the product of another merger that the Trump administration allowed to go through. And what happened there? Well, first, the merger happened only after Paramount agreed to settle a lawsuit that CBS, was involved with in litigation against Donald Trump. And as a result of that settlement, CBS, now Paramount, paid money to Donald Trump. What happened after the merger? Well, all of a sudden, CBS now provides much more favorable coverage to Donald Trump, with one former CBS employee suggesting that the new head of 60 Minutes, Barry Weiss, personally intervened to ensure the stories were more favorable to Donald Trump. And in fact, the merger only went through after CBS agreed to cancel longtime Trump critic Stephen Colbert's popular late-night show. And so we already have pretty concrete evidence that this administration is using antitrust law and the possible approval of mergers as a way to extract personal gain for the president and more favorable coverage for the administration. That's a very serious First Amendment concern, because we rely on the media as an important institution that will hold the president and the executive branch accountable.
Do you think there's anything that stops it from going through?
So it is possible that some state attorneys general might attempt to challenge this litigation. State attorney general were able to intervene in the litigation over Ticketmaster and Live Nation. So it's possible that some litigation could hold it up. But it's unclear, given exactly what information, is out there and what information the state AGs might be able to obtain about the likelihood that this merger would indeed influence coverage and harm consumers.
What about Donald Trump's name, which is now off the Kennedy Center after a judge ordered its removal yesterday? Legally speaking, where could this go? Is it possible after an appeal that his name could be back up on that wall?
It's certainly possible, although at this point it seems fairly unlikely. As the district court wrote when they issued the opinion ordering the administration to take down this language, Congress named the Kennedy Center by law, and only Congress can change that name. The administration did go up to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, asking that court to delay their having to take down the name and potentially keep the name up. That wasn't successful. I guess I'm kind of dubious that they will now go to the Supreme Court or an appellate court to try to obtain a decision that would allow them to put back up the name change, just because that seems like a lot of chaos and a lot of money, for really nothing other than a vanity project. But I guess we shall see.
Yeah. An Ohio voting rights organization was targeted by the FBI Thursday. 3 people briefed on the matter, tell MS Now. Federal agents raided the Cleveland offices of the Ohio Organizing Collaborative and fanned out across the state, showing up at the homes of the group's leaders and staff members, carrying some subpoenas, seeking information and electronic devices, according to the sources. Prentice Haney, board member of the Ohio Organizing Collaborative, told MS Now some of the people said agents approached without warrants and said they were, quote, basically trying to fish for information. Now, we should say the FBI did not respond to a request for a comment here, but does it appear this probe was carried out legally, or was it a politicized fishing expedition?
I think this appears like the latest effort to try to instill fear and chaos into the upcoming election and to try to suppress the vote. We've seen, for example, the president's executive order attempting to obtain voter rolls and information basically go down in flames in court. The Republican Congress failed to pass the SAVE Act, which would have disenfranchised people. And so now it seems like they are resorting to intimidation, scaring people who try to register others to vote and canvass in support of registering to vote. I'm skeptical that these investigations would ever lead to a prosecution, but I don't think prosecutions are the point. The intimidation is, and having a federal agent show up at your door demanding your devices is quite scary. And so I think that the motive for these investigations probably means they are illegal, just efforts to suppress the vote and deter people from registering others to vote.
And then there is the U.S. Postal Service, which proposed a new rule last week allowing it to refuse delivery of mail-in ballots in states which have declined to turn over their voter rolls to the federal government. This all stems from Donald Trump's executive order cracking down on mail-in voting, which has been challenged by 23 Democratic-led states, as well as the District of Columbia. And here's Nevada's Attorney General just this morning on it.
We're already engaged in conversations internally, but also externally about engaging with the USPS on this issue. We're leading that effort as well. You hit the nail on the head. It is a lie. It is not true that there is widespread voter fraud in our elections. We run great elections here. They're free, they're safe, they're open. And at the end of the day, that's been what has carried the day when I not only meet Donald Trump in court, but beat him in court.
So quickly, Leah, a judge ruled last month it was too soon to intervene, but could a constitutional fight be brewing ahead of the midterms?
Yes, if the president actually intends to try to use the Postal Service to effectively nullify state laws, allowing...
Growing controversies emerging inside the Department of Justice as multiple federal courts raise concerns about the alleged misconduct during grand jury proceedings. In several recent cases, Judges have questioned whether prosecutors followed proper legal procedures when seeking indictments. Jurors' concerns have already led to some cases being dismissed, including a major COVID-19 fraud case involving allegations of hundreds of millions of dollars in fraudulent claims. The allegations themselves were serious. But the court focused on whether prosecutors properly handled the grand jury process. As a result, parts of the case were thrown out due to procedural concerns. Legal experts say the impact could be much broader. Defense attorneys are now requesting grand jury transcripts in more cases, arguing that similar misconduct may have occurred elsewhere. Traditionally, those records remain secret, but judges are becoming more willing to review them. The bigger issue is trust. The bigger issue is trust. Courts have long operated on the assumption that prosecutors act fairly and follow the rules. However, some judges are now openly questioning whether that presumption still applies in certain cases. Critics warn that when prosecutors fail to follow proper procedures, even strong criminal cases can collapse, regardless of the underlying evidence that not only affects individual prosecutions but can also diminish public confidence in the justice system. As more cases face security, the controversy is expanding beyond a single courtroom and raising broader questions about accountability, transparency, and the future of federal prosecutions in America.